I stood frozen in the middle of the bursar's office, my sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished tile floor. The hum of the heavy industrial air conditioner seemed to roar in the sudden, suffocating silence. The administrator, a kind woman with braying hair and glasses, turned her computer monitor so I could see the screen clearly. Her expression was full of pity, which made the nausea in my stomach worse. "I'm so sorry, Caleb," she said gently, pointing to the red text on the display. "The transaction was declined. It says, insufficient funds, but actually, the account number doesn't exist anymore. It has been closed." My stomach dropped through the floor, a sensation like falling from a great height. That account held exactly $52,000. It was money my late Nana Rose had saved for 18 years, putting away birthday checks and holiday cash. It was also money I had added to with every single summer job I'd worked since I was 14. That money wasn't just digits on a screen, it was my freedom. It was my exit ticket out of a toxic house. And now, the screen told me it was gone. I walked out of the building, the bright sunlight blinding me, feeling like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. I stormed into the house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the lock. I slammed the front door, needing them to hear me. Richard and Diane, my parents, were in the living room. They were busy moving furniture around and setting up massive ring lights that took up half the space. "Where is it?" I demanded, my voice cracking. Diane didn't even look up from the tripod she was adjusting. "Lower your voice, Caleb. You are going to ruin the audio balance. Trey is about to start filming." "I don't care about the filming. The college fund. I went to pay my tuition today. It's empty. The account is closed." Richard sighed loudly, adjusting his silk tie in the hallway mirror. He looked at me like I was a tedious employee. "We needed liquidity, Caleb. Trey's channel is pivoting to luxury lifestyle. He needed seed capital for the total rebrand. We bought high-end camera equipment, booked travel, and updated his wardrobe. It is an investment in the family name. You need to see the bigger picture here." I felt the blood rush to my face, hot and stinging. "You stole my future for wardrobe," I screamed, my voice echoing off the high ceilings. Just then, Trey walked in. He was wearing a brand new Supreme hoodie that probably cost a full semester's worth of my tuition. He saw my face, laughed, and immediately shoved a camera lens right into my nose. "Yo, capture this raw emotion. This is the haters trying to drag us down, guys. Real tears. Put that away," I snapped, swiping at the camera. "Stop being so selfish, Caleb," Mom chided, finally looking at me with disappointment. "Your brother has a legitimate dream. You can just take out loans. You're smart. You have always been the bookworm. You will figure it out. Trey needs our financial support now to strike while the iron is hot." "You stole $52,000, I said, trembling. "That isn't support. That is theft. It's family funds," Dad said dismissively. "And I earned it, so I decide where it goes. Now, get out of the shot. You're ruining the lighting." I retreated to my room and locked the door, sliding down against the wood until I hit the floor. My heart was pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I pulled up Trey's channel, Trey Blaze TV, on my phone. The video they had bought with my tuition had been up for 48 hours. I stared at the view count. It had 412 views. I scrolled through the comments. Most of them were obvious bots saying things like, "Great content," or generic emojis. There were maybe 3 real people. $52,000, I whispered to the empty room. He had burned through my entire life savings for an audience that didn't even exist. The realization wasn't just painful, it was clarifying. For years, I thought if I worked hard enough, they would respect me. But looking at those 412 views, I realized the truth. They didn't love me less, they just didn't see me at all. To them, I was just background noise. Trey was the main character. I sat there for an hour, staring at the wall, until the sadness turned into something cold and hard. I stood up and grabbed a duffel bag. I couldn't stay in this house another night. As I started packing clothes, I remembered I needed my birth certificate. I crept down the hall to the family office. Dad rarely locked the safe because he was too arrogant to think anyone would dare touch his stuff. I opened the heavy door and grabbed my documents. As I pulled them out, a thick manila envelope fell to the floor. Summit Chalet. Deed. A memory flashed back instantly. 4 years ago. Dad was being sued by a contractor he had refused to pay. He was panicked about his assets being seized by the court. He had dragged me, barely 18, to a notary. He made me sign papers I didn't understand. It's just for safety, kiddo, he had said, sweating. You're holding it for us. Just a technicality to keep the wolves away. I looked at the envelope in my hand. The house was a luxury vacation rental in the mountains. I hadn't thought about it in years. I sat down at the desk and opened the envelope. My hands trembled as I unfolded the crisp paper. There it was, in black and white. Warranty deed. Grantee. Caleb Vance. I flipped through the pages. I looked for a trust document, a side letter, or anything that said I was just a holding agent for my parents. There was nothing. No addendums. No contracts. Just my name on the title. Legally, I didn't just hold the title to the Summit Chalet. I was the Summit Chalet. Dad had been so worried about hiding the asset from the lawsuit and the IRS that he had transferred full, unrestricted ownership to me. He assumed I would always be the obedient, quiet son who did what he was told. He never imagined I would look in the safe. He never imagined he would push me this far. My hands stopped shaking. A cold, hard plan began to form in the pit of my stomach. I took the deed, put it in my bag, and walked out the side door. I spent the night in my car, but I didn't care. I drove to the county clerk's office the next morning instead of going to my dorm. I needed to be 100% sure before I made a move. Is there a lien on this property? I asked the clerk, my voice tight with nerves. I slid the address across the counter. She typed for a moment, the clicking of her keyboard the only sound in the room. No liens, she said. It is owned free and clear by Caleb Vance. Is that you? That's me, I said, letting out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Nice property, she smiled, turning the screen slightly. Market value just hit $650,000. The area is booming right now. I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral. $650,000. It was more than 10 times what they had stolen from me. It was enough to change everything. I found a real estate attorney, Mr. Henderson, in a strip mall next to a dry cleaner. His office smelled like old coffee and paper, but he looked sharp. I put the last $200 I had to my name on his desk. Can I sell this? I asked, pushing the deed forward. He put on his reading glasses and looked at it, then at me. Your parents live there. No, it's a vacation rental. They use it to hide money from the IRS. Henderson raised an eyebrow but didn't look surprised. He leaned back in his chair. If your name is on the deed, and there's no written agreement stating you're holding it in trust, strictly speaking, it's your house, son. You can live in it, burn it down, or sell it. But selling it is smarter. What if they try to sue me? I asked. They would have to admit to fraud to claim it back, he said with a grin. I hesitated for a moment. Selling the house was the nuclear option. There would be no going back from this. It would destroy my relationship with them forever. Then, my phone buzzed. I got a notification. Trey was live. I clicked on it. He was standing in my room, the room I had just vacated yesterday. We are transforming this dusty old space into a premier gaming studio. He shouted at the camera. Out with the old, in with the blaze. He picked up a box of my favorite books, vintage sci-fi paperbacks I had collected for years, and kicked it over for dramatic effect. The books spilled out across the floor, covers bending. Who needs books when you have content? He laughed. That was it. The hesitation evaporated instantly. They didn't respect my property, my money, or my space. Why should I respect their tax shelter? I turned off the phone. I called a realtor named Brenda. I had looked her up online. She was known as a shark who moved properties fast. I want a quick sale, I told her when we met at a coffee shop. Cash offers only. Price it to move immediately. She looked at the property details on her tablet. This is a prime location. We can list it for $550,000 to get a bidding war, or just set it there for a fast cash close. It's under market value, so it will go in a week. Do it, I said. But there is one condition. No, for sale, sign on the lawn. I want this discreet until the ink is dry. I don't want the neighbors, or my family, to know it's on the market. Understood, Brenda said, her eyes lighting up at the commission. I have a list of investors who buy properties like this sight unseen. I'll make some calls. 2 days later, Dad called me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I saw his name on the screen. I thought he knew. I thought I was caught. Caleb, he barked, we need you to go up to the chalet this weekend and clean the gutters. Trey is doing a lifestyle shoot there next month, and we need the exterior to look pristine. I gripped the phone tight. I'm busy, Dad. I'm looking for a second job to pay for school since the fund is gone. Don't be petty, he snapped. Just get it done. You owe us for raising you. Stop being difficult. He hung up before I could answer. He had no idea. He thought he was ordering a servant to do chores. He didn't realize he was talking to the landlord. The irony made me dizzy. He was demanding free labor on a house he didn't even own anymore. Brenda called me an hour later. I have an investor. He wants to see it today. If he likes the interior, he will write an offer. I drove up to the chalet. My hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. I had to let them in using my key. The house was silent and cold. As we walked through the living room, I saw a large framed photo of Trey on the mantel, smiling his fake influencer smile. I walked over and turned it face down. The investor, a serious man in a gray suit, looked around the room. He checked the foundation and tapped on the walls. I can close in 10 days, he said. All cash, no contingencies. Sold, I said without skipping a beat. We signed the initial paperwork right there on the kitchen island, standing next to the coffee maker my parents had bought with hidden money. While the paperwork was processing, I saw a new post from Trey. It was a sneak peek of his upcoming content schedule. Big news, Blazer RRS. The Summit Chalet is officially becoming the Hype House North. Dad gave me the keys, and we are taking over. He was promising his 400 followers a full tour of a house I had already signed away. He posted photos of designs for a new hot tub deck. The clock was ticking. If they went up there before closing, they would see the inspections happening or run into the investor. The deal would blow up, and I would be left with nothing. I needed to keep them away for just over a week. I felt like I was walking a tightrope over a canyon. I needed to stall them. I couldn't physically block the driveway, so I had to use their own laziness against them. I sent a text to Mom. Hey, just so you know, I heard on the weather report that the roads up to the summit are totally washed out from the storm last night. Mudslides. Might want to wait on that trip. She replied 3 minutes later. Thanks for the heads up. We don't want to get the Range Rover muddy. We will go next weekend instead. I let out a long breath. Next weekend would be too late. By next weekend, the locks would be changed, and the deed would be recorded in someone else's name. The next 5 days were a blur of anxiety. Every time my phone rang, I thought it was the title company calling to say there was a problem. But finally, I sat in the title office. My hand cramped as I signed the final document. The stack of papers was thick. The investor had already wired the funds. Here is the wire transfer confirmation, the title agent said, sliding a piece of paper across the desk. $515,000. That was the final amount after the agent fees, the expedited closing costs, and the property taxes were paid off. I stared at the receipt. It wasn't just money. It was freedom. It was Nana Rose's college fund, plus interest for the trauma. I didn't waste a single second. As soon as the money hit my account, I began moving it. I transferred $60,000 to a high-yield savings account specifically for my tuition and room and board. That guaranteed my degree. I put $10,000 into a checking account for immediate expenses. The rest, over $400,000, I moved into a diversified index fund that was locked in a trust I had set up with Mr. Henderson. I couldn't touch it easily, and more importantly, nobody else could touch it. I wanted the money buried deep where they couldn't claw it back. I wasn't going to be like Trey. I wasn't going to blow it on hoodies and cameras. I went back to the family house one last time while they were at a networking brunch for Trey's channel. The house was quiet. I went to my room, or what used to be my room. It was already half-painted neon green. I packed the rest of my things into my car. My winter coat, my laptop, and the few framed photos of Nana Rose I had hidden in the closet. I walked to the kitchen. I took my key to the main house off my keyring. I placed it gently on the marble counter. I didn't leave a note. There was nothing left to say. They had made their choice when they stole my future. Now I had made mine. Friday afternoon arrived. The sale was officially recorded at the county. The deed was transferred. The new owner, a developer named Mr. Vance, no relation, ironically, was taking full possession on Saturday morning. I was sitting in a cheap motel room when I saw Trey's Instagram story. The family SUV was packed to the roof. Dad was driving, wearing sunglasses. Mom was in the passenger seat. Trey was in the back, filming. Road trip to the hype house. Rocket, let's go, he screamed. They were heading straight into the buzzsaw. They were driving 3 hours to a house they no longer owned. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it later from my cousin. They arrived at the chalet at 6 p.m. The sun was setting. Dad walked up to the front door and tried his key. It didn't turn. He jiggled it, annoyed. He tried again. Nothing. He tried the keypad on the garage. The code had been wiped. He started banging on the door, his face turning red. He assumed I had gone up there to clean the gutters and change the locks just to be difficult. He was screaming my name, threatening to cut me off, oblivious to the truth. The front door swung open. But it wasn't me standing there. It was the new owner's private security detail. A large man in a black uniform stepped out onto the porch. "Can I help you?" the guard asked, his voice deep and commanding. "Get out of my house." Dad screamed, pushing past him. "I own this place. Who are you?" The guard blocked him easily. "Actually, sir, Mr. Sterling owns this property. He bought it 3 days ago. You are trespassing. I need you to leave the premises immediately, or I will call the sheriff." Dad froze. Mom dropped her designer bag in the snow. Trey kept filming, too shocked to stop. My phone rang. It was Dad. I stared at it. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. Then Mom called. Then Trey. Finally, I picked up Dad's fourth call. "You sold my house." He sounded like his throat was bleeding. He was shrieking so loud the speaker distorted. "What did you do?" "I sold my house, Dad," I said. My voice was calm. It was the first time in years I didn't feel scared of him. "You put it in my name to dodge the creditors, remember?" "It was in my name. I sold it. I will sue you into the ground. I will bury you," he screamed. "I will drag you to court and take every penny back." "You can't," I said. "I spoke to a lawyer. It's called the unclean hands doctrine. If you sue me, you have to admit to the court, and the IRS, that the transfer was fraudulent to begin with. You have to admit you were hiding assets." I paused, letting the words sink in. "Do you really want an IRS audit, Dad? Do you want them looking at your business accounts?" Silence. Pure, heavy silence on the other end of the line. The only sound was the wind blowing into his phone. "Caleb." Mom's voice came on the line. She was crying, her voice trembling. "Trey promised his sponsors a location shoot. He took pre-orders for merchandise based on this trip. He has contracts. You're ruining him." "You ruined me first," I said, my voice hardening. "You stole my education. You stole Nana's legacy." "Trey can film in the backyard." "I'm done. We are your family," she wailed. "Family doesn't steal from each other," I said. "You treated me like an employee you could rob. Now I've resigned." I hung up the phone. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but also the necessary thing. I blocked their numbers immediately. I blocked their emails. I blocked them on social media. 2 weeks later, I heard through a cousin that the fallout was spectacular. Trey's sponsors, who turned out to be mostly drop-shipping scams, dropped him for failing to deliver the content. He had to refund the merch money, which he had already spent. Dad was scrambling. The sale of the house triggered a capital gains tax notification that he wasn't expecting, and now the IRS was asking questions about where the asset came from. He was too busy fighting auditors to come after me. I stood on the campus quad, the autumn leaves crunching under my boots. My tuition was paid in full. My dorm room was quiet and safe. I checked my bank account. The numbers were there, safe. I checked Trey's channel one last time. He was posting a grainy video titled, "Why Family is Toxic," from his childhood bedroom. It had 300 views. I swiped the app closed, put my phone in my pocket, and walked into my first class. The air smelled crisp and clean. I had lost my parents, but I had bought my life back. And it was worth every penny.